Hello, future educators, and welcome back. Today we're starting a new unit on education and equality of opportunity. And speaking of new things, I got a new haircut, so I'm raring to go on this new unit. All right, this is from chapter 3 in your textbook. Next slide. So, so we have, a few animals lined up here in this cartoon, and we have a judge. And the judge says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. And looking up at the lineup of animals, we have a feeling that the monkey is probably going to win that contest. Is this fair? So let's talk about some definitions. First, what does Spring mean by the equality of opportunity or equality of opportunity? So, equality of opportunity is defined as all members of a society being given equal chances to pursue wealth and enter any occupation or social class. An opportunity to pursue wealth and any occupation or social class. He's not talking about everyone having equal incomes or equal status, but everyone having an equal chance. Okay. Slide 4. So, let's talk about the common school model and how that model kind of envisions equality of opportunity. So we've got all these families together, right? Horace Mann wanted to unite rich people and poor people. Okay. And so we have high income families sending their kids to schools, middle income families sending their kids to these common schools, and low income families sending their kids, and everyone's going to the same school or a common school. And everyone's receiving the same education, a common education, a public education, an education for everyone. And then we have our social starting line after graduation. So everyone receives comparable education. After graduation, all students then have an equal opportunity to compete in the labor market. Okay, they're going to get jobs. Some of them will advance. Some will advance faster than others. Eventually, in the labor market, things will kind of sort, and some um, adults will have high income jobs, some will have middle income jobs, some will have low income jobs. They all had the same schooling though, and then after graduation, they all have an equal opportunity. Presumably, Horace Mann thought that those young people who work the hardest will, after they graduate, they'll, in their who work the hardest in their jobs will presumably advance faster, that kind of thing. Now, here's a different way of looking at it. Okay? Thinking of the sorting not taking place in the workplace, but taking place in schools. So, the sorting machine model says that again, high income, middle income, and low income families are all sending their kids to school, the same public school. But then once in school, okay, the students are going to be sorted by teachers, by counselors, standardized tests. They're going to be sorted into tracks or ability groups. Okay, so the starting line, everybody in kindergarten is in the same place, but then we're going to put the kids into different tracks by ability. So they're being sorted early on in school, let's say first grade maybe. Then they graduate, and um, those who presumably do the best in school end up going to college and they learn symbolic analytic services. So basically, this higher level thinking, management, that kind of thing. The next tier in this sorting machine model is routine production services. So we're getting things done. We're into producing. We're not necessarily into being creative or analytic, but we're getting things done. The next tier is in-person or personal services. This is where we have customer service. Um, the next tier, government workers. Interesting. Government workers are there. And then finally, farmers, miners, other people who are in what we would consider a labor class. Okay, this is the sorting machine model. And based on what the counselor in high school says, for example, that's going to determine where young people will end up in the workplace. Now, the high stakes testing is a way that sorting could work. Okay, so high stakes testing could happen, and it could happen at multiple points along a child's education. So everybody's going into the public school. Elementary and secondary schools use high stakes tests for grade promotion. Okay, so um, if a third grader is going to go on to fourth grade, then he or she needs to pass a test or tests, standardized tests, right? And maybe these tests are also used to sort kids into tracks or ability groups. So we're not going necessarily by the judgment or the teacher created tests of teachers. We're not going by the judgment of counselors. We're using these tests, these so-called standardized tests, to sort kids, right? Then you get at the end of high school, you get an exit test. You don't get your diploma unless you pass the tests at a certain level. Tests are required for entrance into each level of higher education, including undergraduate, graduate, and professional schools. Testing for admission to post-secondary job training. So you have to pass a test before you can engage in job training in particular fields. In job training, and like for example, if you're going to do some job training at a community college or other institution. Also, high stakes tests for job credentials. So once you're in the job, as you have to get certification in this or that, um, um, you you're taking another high stakes test. And then finally, after you've passed all these tests, you're in the job market. You continue in the job market. Maybe there's continued credentialing, that kind of thing. Anyway, tests are doing the sorting. Okay. Um, that's another way of looking at things. Now, let's think about this a little critically. So I want to share with you some Georgia statistics. This is from the state report card. The Governor's Office of Student Achievement puts out a state report card. And one of the pieces of data they collect is student attendance. And they provide data on attendance by race or ethnicity. So let's see. For the 2015-2016 school year, you see the list of various racial groups: American Indian or Alaska Native, Asian or Pacific Islander, Black or African American, Hispanic or Latino, multiracial, and white. Okay? And then you see the number of students who fall into that racial group. And then we have the percent of students who are absent 5 or fewer days. So these are the percent of students of each racial group who had good attendance. Okay, they were absent 5 or fewer days. I want you to look at this percentage of students who had good attendance. And which racial group had the most students with good attendance looking at this data? If you said Asian Pacific Islander, you're correct. They had 72% of students had good attendance. Okay? Among Asian American students, 72% had good attendance in public schools in Georgia. Who came in second? If you said black or African American, you're correct. Among black students, about 59% had good attendance. Okay? So Asian American students were first, then black students came in second. Okay? So now if we think about if a student comes to school, they're learning, right? They're progressing in school, okay? They have good attendance, they're learning, they're progressing. We have Asian American students in first, we have black students in second. So let's go to the next slide. Here's graduation rate in 2015, 2016. And we have on the first column lists of racial groups, and then the number of kids who fell into those groups, and then finally the percent that graduated. Okay, so for every 100 kids in the particular racial group, how many graduated? So, which racial group has the highest percent graduation? Looking at this, Asian Pacific Islander American students, 89% of them, 88% graduated in Georgia in 2015-2016 school year. Okay? So 88%, 88 out of 100 Asian American students graduated. Who came in second? If you said white students, you're right. Among white students, 83% graduated. Okay? So this is something to think about, right? We would expect that Asian American students, they had the best attendance and the best graduation rate. That's kind of what we would expect, right? But what happens in second place? Why isn't the second most present racial group or the group that had the second best attendance, why doesn't that group also have the second best graduation rate? Okay, what has happened in the schools such that attendance is not necessarily related to graduation rate for all racial groups? Okay, something to think about. So, social reproduction theory. There's a starting place. Kids are either high status, middle status, or low status when they come to schools. Very wealthy, middle class, poor, working class when they come to schools. In schools, high status kids get an exemplary education. They're at the best schools, or they're in the best programs within so-so schools, right? Kids at middle status are getting a middle or medium education. Not the best, not the worst, kind of in the middle. Decent schools. Okay? Kids with low status, low income, working class, poor are getting a poor education, or they're being educationally neglected in their schools. Okay? So then what happens when these kids graduate? Those who received an exemplary education, they're qualified for high income jobs. Those who received a middle or medium education, they get a middle income job. Those who received a poor education get a low income job. Okay? So essentially, they remain in the same class or status as their parents. Their social status is reproduced again and again generationally. Schools are reproducing the social status that kids are coming in with. Okay? If we have exemplary, medium, neglectful schools, exemplary, medium, neglectful teachers within those schools, um, then we reproduce what kids come in with. There's no movement among the classes. All right? Okay. So, one question I would ask is, and this was a motto a couple of years ago, the motto of Augusta University was success is a choice, right? One question I would ask is educational success an individual choice? Does each student get to decide what type of education they're going to get? Do their parents get to decide? Okay. Do they get to decide if they're going to go to college and have access to higher income jobs or not? Okay. And of course, there are variations, there are exceptions, but on average, those who attend college will make more across their lifetime than those who do not. Okay. Is educational success an individual choice? All right. And I wanted to show a little video. I think this is the last video in this class of my kids. But one more video from the Campoli archives. Let me see if I can click it. I can't seem to click it. Let me copy and open up a window so I can show this to you. So, where is Uncle Nkosi right now, do you think?
He's at home.
No, he's not at home. He went somewhere. Where does he go?
I don't know.
He goes to college.
Is he at college?
Yes, he's at college. How about you? When you're big, where will you go?
To college.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so my daughter, she was 2. And she knew that she was going to college when she grew up. Okay. I'm reinforcing that as a parent. I have the means to make sure that she attends really good schools, really good public schools. I have the knowledge and the social capital that's going to get her into a magnet school here in Augusta and is going to put her on track to getting into college. I know how you apply for colleges. I know how you apply for financial aid for colleges. Okay. I am going to make sure, based on the knowledge that I have, that she is placed in a school that's going to set her up for a certain level of success later on. Does she have a choice? Not when I'm drilling it into her head from the age of 2 on, and putting her on a path. Okay, so some things to think about. See you next time.